Hey, mitä kuuluu? Hi, how are you? In this video, we are going to talk about Finglish, which means basically the mix of English and Finnish together. How does it work? When is it used? And what are common Finglish words that native Finns use in their everyday communication? Let's get started. Mitä Finglish on? Finglish means the mixed language of Finnish and English, and commonly English words that are made more Finnish sounding and that work as a part of Finnish. So in Finnish, we actually sometimes take some English words and we transform them into Finnish sounding or more Finnish sounding words. And soon I'm gonna give you some examples of that. But first, it's important to understand when can we use Finglish or when native Finns use it. Well, it's commonly used nowadays in social media and also in gaming and in tech. And it's a feature that is more present among the younger generations. I sometimes do use Finglish, but the people who are even younger than me use it most likely a lot more. And also, I would say that in the capital and in the areas nearby the capital, this is a more common phenomenon than if you go somewhere else. Probably because of the influence of many other languages and the English language in our social media and traditional media like TV. And of course, it's also used in multilingual circles, and that's probably one of the reasons why also this is more common in Helsinki and in the nearby areas. But before watching further, let me know in the comments, do you already know some Finglish words? Why do Finns use Finglish? In Finnish we might say, meillä on huomenna deadline. This is very common. We actually use this often even at an office. One of the reasons is that English dominates tech and work culture nowadays a lot, especially in multinational companies or in companies that have a lot of foreigners working there. And not even only in those type of companies, also in other companies that are heavily related on tech, for example. And some English words might feel more simple or faster, and they might not even have a clear established Finnish equivalent yet, because the language is constantly changing. For example, some new technological inventions might not have automatically a translation, and there might be several years that we don't really have any established translation for them, so it's just easier to use the English one. Also, many people read about tech or watch videos about tech in English because there's a lot more material available. And this is then often what also influences our language choices. Me too, for example, I have my computer in English because every time I used to have some tech issue, I needed to search for information. And like when I was younger and I was trying to find solutions in Finnish, it was quite hard. And then eventually I realized that, well, if I'm watching a video or I'm reading about this in English, but I have all my settings in Finnish, I have to do double the work trying to translate these specific words about tech that I might not be so familiar with in any language, rather than just using them in English and finding the right settings according to the instructions that I was looking. So this is a very practical thing too when it comes to tech. And as I mentioned, also in international workplaces, we use sometimes Finglish. And as I mentioned already, foreign influences through social media, TV, etc. are also influencing the way we are using language nowadays. Some people also might find some English words or English sounding words trendier or cooler. I think especially some young people. Well, here you can see some common Finglish words that are commonly used, especially in social media and on the internet, but also in our everyday communication when we're talking to each other. Tsekata. Mä tsekkaan sen myöhemmin. And in standard Finnish, we would say tarkistaa. Mä tarkistan sen myöhemmin. So this is not really about lacking an alternative. It's just that we have become very familiar with checking, and Tsekata comes directly from that. Postata. Mä postasin uuden videon. This means I posted a new video. A more Finnish word would be julkaista. Julkaisin uuden videon. But julkaista actually means to publish, and it sounds way more formal than postata. So normally when we talk about social media and uploading something on social media, we always use postata, because postata and julkaista have a bit different tone, right? So that's why we actually use the English word here. Julkaista would be more like when you're publishing a book, then you never post it unless you make a social media post about your book. Printata. To print. Voitko printata tän? Can you print this? Tulostaa. Voitko tulostaa tän? And both of these are synonyms. They don't have really any difference. You can choose whichever you prefer or use both of them. And by the way, as you might have seen, I've used spoken Finnish in all of these example sentences. I want to highlight that using spoken Finnish does not automatically mean using Finglish or using slang. I've made another video about spoken Finnish versus standard Finnish, and if you're interested in the differences or how it's used, well, you can check out the video. I will leave the link up there. Scrollata. Mä vaan scrollaan TikTokia. I'm just scrolling TikTok. Selailla. Mä selailen vaan TikTokia. And selailla means to scroll or to browse, but selailla is also used, for example, when you're browsing a book. So it's a more traditional word again. And I would say that scrollata is way more natural in social media context or in internet context nowadays than selailla. Selailla is also possible, but it sounds more formal. Bännätä. Se bännättiin pelistä. Estää could be one of the possible translations for this. Estää would be to forbid. Se estettiin pelistä. So meaning he or she was banned from the game. And, well, in gaming context, we also use a lot of Finglish. Interestingly, normally the words are still written according to common Finnish orthography, and words are conjugated and declined like other Finnish words. As you can see, for example, scrollata, we have changed the C into K because C is an extremely rare letter in the Finnish alphabet, so we kind of follow normally the Finnish rules. The same with bännätä. In English, ban, that A actually sounds like ä in Finnish, so normally we would respect that orthography that we have in Finnish. Work life, deadline, which I already mentioned. We have also a word called aikaraja, but I don't think many people use this word actually anymore. It sounds kind of forced, and deadline is such a common word nowadays. Everybody understands what a deadline is. So we say normally deadline on perjantaina. We could technically say aikaraja on perjantaina, but honestly, I don't even remember when was the last time I heard this. Miitti, miitinki. These are very colloquial words for palaveri and kokous. Mulla on kohta miitti. I soon have a meeting. Feedback. Palaute is the more Finnish word for this, but we might say sain hyvää feedbackia or sain hyvää palautetta. Zoomata. The more Finnish word is suurentaa. Voitko vähän zoomata tota esitystä? Can you zoom in that presentation a little? And notice that we still say this more in a Finnish way normally. Zoomata. So the z letter normally in Finnish is ts sound, like ts. So we say zoomata. Level tai leveli. The Finnish word would be taso. On tärkeää nostaa liiketoimintaa seuraavalle levelille. It's important to raise the business into the next level. And by the way, business is also very commonly used in Finnish too. Liiketoiminta would be the more Finnish equivalent for business. Everyday life, matchata, tarkoittaa samaa kuin sopia yhteen, coming from the English word match. Tää laukku matchaa sun kenkien kanssa, meaning tää laukku sopii yhteen sun kenkien kanssa. This bag goes well with your shoes, or this bag matches well with your shoes. In Finnish, we would need two words for this, sopii yhteen, quite commonly, to express the same idea as to match. So maybe people feel that using the English word is easier, it's shorter, you don't need so many words, and communication becomes faster. Skipata, to skip, and in Finnish we could also say jättää välistä, jättää tekemättä tai ohittaa. Skipata doesn't have always just one straightforward translation, and maybe that's why also it's so commonly used as a Finglish word. Mä skippaan aina mainokset. I always skip the ads. Ohitan aina mainokset. This is also possible. But then you could say, for example, mä skippaan tunnin. I'll skip the lesson. Eli mä jätän tunnin välistä. Mä jätän tunnin välistä. Spoilata can be either paljastaa liikaa or, for example, kertoa loppu, to spoil something. But mainly we use it when we talk about spoiling, for example, a movie or spoiling a book, so telling too much about the end or the topics of the book or the movie. Älä spoilaa sitä leffaa. Don't spoil the movie. Älä paljasta sen leffan loppua. If we don't use spoilata, we have to use more words to express the same idea. Älä paljasta sen leffan loppua. So maybe that's why spoilata is so common nowadays. Ignorata, one of my favorites. Actually, ignorata means to ignore, but in Finnish we could say jättää huomiotta, which sounds a little bit clunky. Älä ignoraa mua. Don't ignore me. Älä jätä mua huomiotta. Sounds way more formal. More words that we use commonly in everyday life. Ghostata. Ghostata comes from the verb to ghost someone, especially when we talk about social media, dating, etc. And it means basically the same as lopettaa yhteydenpito ilman selitystä. Tai kadota. Se ghostas mut. Se vaan katos ilman selitystä. He or she ghosted me. He or she just disappeared without an explanation. Dumpata. Jättää. Se dumppas mut. Se jätti mut. He or she left me when we talk about a relationship. Legit. This is very common also, especially among young adults and also teenagers, coming from the English word literally legit, but we just say it differently, legit, like the Finnish way. And we could also say ihan oikeasti or oikeasti, aidosti. And in some more formal contexts, if we talk about law, the word would be laillinen. But normally we use it as a synonym for oikeasti or ihan oikeasti. Tää on legit paras kahvi täällä. Tää on oikeasti paras kahvi täällä. If you want to learn more about spoken Finnish, now you can sign up for my self-paced Finnish courses in which I go in detail through when to use spoken Finnish versus when to use standard Finnish and what are the common differences between these two. I will teach you some of the most common spoken language words and forms and also structures that help you to understand how to form spoken language forms and how to understand new vocabulary more easily without having to remember everything by heart. The recommended starting level for this course is A2. You need to have your basic Finnish skills already in order because this is not focused on grammar, it's focused on using different registers and common vocabulary. So I expect that you already have good solid basis on common vocabulary and grammar to join this course. If you want to find more information, you can click the link below. How to make Finglish words. Often we can take an English word and add ata or ata after it, given that the word is a verb. Match, matchata. Ghost, ghostata. Dump, dumpata. Some foreign letters often change to match Finnish pronunciation. Scroll, for example, would be scrollata. Ban, bannata. And nouns of foreign origin often end with an I. For example, a band is bändi. Bank is pankki. And this is not a new phenomenon, as you can see. Pankki is a word that we have had around for quite a long time, but also it comes probably from Swedish originally. Also, it has the same structure, like we have changed the B into P, which is a more traditional letter in Finnish, and it ends with an I. And this same phenomenon is pretty common also when it comes to newer loan words or newer Finglish words. Well, is Finglish good or bad? Some of you might criticize Finns for using Finglish, and for me even teaching you about Finglish, but it's not objectively simply good or bad. It is good sometimes to be practical and to express things fast and in a more simple way. Also, some people might find using Finglish sometimes more modern, and also it's a result of globalization. English has become the global language, and it's also reflected to some extent in modern Finnish. Well, some people might argue that using Finglish is bad because it can sound very unnecessary, because in most cases we do have a Finnish word or at least a Finnish expression for most of those English words too. And especially older people may dislike it, so I do not recommend to use Finglish with everybody. I do not recommend to use Finglish excessively because it can be a bit annoying. Not only in the opinion of the older generation, but I'm about 30, by the way. People of my generation also might think that, well, using it excessively is kind of weird. Like if you speak English, well, you can speak English. But if you speak Finnish, well, try to use more Finnish words. So I would personally think that using some Finglish is okay, and I sometimes also do it. Yeah, it's normal. It's normal behavior in language that it's changing and it's flexible depending on the situation also, but I would not overuse it. And as Finnish learners, well, I don't recommend you to resort to Finglish too much, because then it might make your learning process maybe a bit slower, because it's really important that you know the real Finnish words too, right? And the more formal words, because the register is really important. If you go to a job interview, well, don't use Finglish. And last but not least, it may also weaken some Finnish alternatives. Maybe some people are worried that we will stop using some Finnish words because English will take over those words. And perhaps it can be a valid concern, but the language is going to change in some form anyway. So, well, I don't know if we have to really worry about it too much. Now it's your turn. Is mixing English into your native language common? And what do you think about it? What do you think about these Finglish words? And have you heard many Finns using Finglish? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. That way you will get notifications when I'm uploading new videos about the Finnish language, Finland, or Finnish culture. Share the video with someone who you think might enjoy it as well. Kiitos kun katsoit. Thank you for watching.